You're about to learn how to make a bone broth. I'm going to show you how I create a bone broth and how you can create your own bone broth at home very simply, very easily, as well as mix and match ingredients. You don't have to do it exactly as I am at all. Work with what you have on hand. All right, bone broth. It's a bit of a trend right now, and I think for good reason. It's going to provide you really deep, deep nourishment. Bone broths are fantastic for minerals. That's one of the things here. And they've been traditionally consumed by almost all cultures around the world, and is really just utilizing the whole animal. It's like eating a whole food, right? We're into this idea of whole foods, yet when it comes to animal foods, most of us may only eat muscle tissue or the breasts or whatever it is. We eat certain portions of the animal, not the whole animal. So this allows us to really honor that animal that has contributed its body for our nourishment and really fully utilize the whole of the animal and get all of its benefits. What you get from the bones and from the marrow is very different than what you get nutrition-wise from the muscle meat or from the skin or from the organs. So love that it is a trend. Definitely when you're sourcing your meat, you can use any kind of bones to bake a bone broth. Make sure you're just getting the best, highest quality. Organic, grass-fed, free range, this kind of idea. And what you're about to learn here is some of the key ingredients that'll add to a bone broth. Just to really take it to that next level, make sure you're doing it right. And if you want, we did a video earlier with Luca Simmons, and she explained the difference between a meat stock and a bone broth. You might have heard those terminologies before. So there's a meat stock. She goes into the depth on its benefits, its properties, why you might choose a meat stock over a bone broth. Both are good. Both are fantastic. Check out that video. Right now, we're focusing on bone broth. All right, so I have the absolute pleasure and blessing of having some moose meat. This was gathered from some hunting friends of mine. They are the type of people that absolutely revere the animals. They use every little bit of part of it. So they gifted me part of the ribs. So I've got some of that here. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to put that straight into the pot. Now, whatever you have in terms of different animals, it could be, the carcass of a chicken. You have a chicken family dinner, you're going to be left with those bones. Save those aside in the freezer. Maybe it's lamb chops. What I'll do here is I've got a bag that not only will I throw veggie scraps into, but any little bits and bones, things that you're not eating from a meal that contains that. Just pop it in, throw it into the freezer, and then you pull it out when you're ready to make your bone broth. All right, so we've got our bones in the in the pot. We're going to add some water, and it's up to you depending on that ratio. I tend to sometimes honestly add a little bit too much water. So I'm not going to fill it up all the way. I'm going to maybe do about 2/3 of the way with water. That's a good kind of bone to liquid ratio. And the next step here is we're going to add in apple cider vinegar. Just a little splash, about 2 tablespoons. And what that does is just helps pull out the minerals. As that meat and the bones sits in the liquid, the apple cider vinegar, the acidity of it begins to help pull out some of those minerals, make them just more kind of available. Next, we're going to add in some other key ingredients. Things, naturally, traditionally, a lot of us, if we've ever made a broth before, vegetable scraps. And again, I've got little bits of other bones in here from past meals, but mainly, here's the end of a leek. Here's some parsley. I've got onion skins and tops, some celery. Here's purple onion. Here's some garlic skins. All of that's going to go in. Carrot tops. One thing I wouldn't add in there is anything from the brassica family, so your kales, your broccolis, your cauliflowers. Leave that aside. Just stick to, table scraps from your onions, your garlic, your celery, your carrots, those kinds of things. Great addition. So we've got bones. We have the apple cider vinegar to help pull out more of the minerals. Now we're adding our vegetable scraps. Another thing you can add in are herbs. Fresh herbs, right from the garden. Something like parsley, something like lovage, bay leaf. So your culinary herbs to impart that flavor. They also, of course, do have nutritional and medicinal properties as well. So go ahead and add that in. Another thing I like to add in, Still in the world of herbs, but thinking more of our medicinal herbs, right? So, some of the great Chinese tonic herbs, like astragalus, you can add that in. Jujube date, echinacea, nettle leaf. I just so happened to pick this out the cupboard, Heishu Wu, one of the great Chinese tonic herbs. Really good for building jing. Being a kind of a darker meat, the moose is going to have a real deep flavor. Heishu Wu as a herb, you can make it into a really beautiful kind of dark, earthy tea, is going to pair well with that flavor. Let's say if I was making chicken, I might go more astragalus and goji berries, for instance. So up to you, you can play with it, but think about adding in medicinal herbs into your tea. Tea, that was a bit of a slip up there. It's almost, I'm building it similarly to a tea, adding in those medicinal herbs. Next, we're going to add in a little bit of chaga mushroom. So when you're creating a bone broth, think about adding in medicinal mushrooms. I love chaga. Again, I'm going for more of that kind of real dark, earthy flavor. So chaga is going to pair well. Reishi mushroom could be another choice. You can work with some of the medicinal mushrooms that also have a real strong, wonderful culinary flavor, like maitake, like shiitake. All those ones go in fantastically as well. So if you have mushrooms on hand, culinary or medicinal, get those into the pot as well. Another food you might consider adding in, again, this is about stacking nutrition. Bone broth to me is about concentrated goodness, deep, deep nourishment. So we've got that from the bones, the vegetables, the medicinal herbs, the mushrooms, and also, don't forget about sea vegetables. Sea vegetables, things like dulse, kelp, nori. We all know that contain a lot of wonderful macro and micro minerals, a lot of trace minerals, fantastic source of that. And I have to be honest, there's some seaweeds I like the flavor of and I'm willing to consume and enjoy them every day. Others, not my favorite. If you add them into a bone broth, just adding it a little bit, you're going to get all those benefits, all those minerals, but you're not going to know it. You're not going to taste it. It just adds to that nutrient density. All right. Of course, you could keep going, add different things, but I think about those main categories, right? So you start with well-sourced bones. You add in some sort of acid to help pull out the minerals. You add in vegetables. You add in culinary herbs, medicinal mushrooms, some sea vegetables, top with water. Turn it up high initially to get it to that level of a simmer, and then turn it down. Now, if you watch that video on the meat stock, Luca recommends doing it for less amount of time. It's a short cook time, 2 hours. Whereas a bone broth, you can really let it go. And the longer, the stronger it gets. For me, typically what I'll do is, like today, it's kind of late afternoon. I'll make the bone broth and I'll let it simmer overnight. Or equally the reverse, you get up in the morning, you can prepare that broth, let it simmer all day. Some people go as long as, 72 hours. So play with it in terms of flavor and experience for you. How deep and strong of a flavor do you want? Maybe 8 to 12 hours is just perfect enough, or 24. So super easy to make. Once you're done, of course, you're going to strain all that off. Everything that's been in the pot, that's been a part of that big, long simmer, is going to have all its nutrients, all its flavor extracted out. That then becomes for compost or garbage, and you're straining off that beautiful, nice, deep, deep nourishment, that liquid. I'll top up into mason jars, put, 3/4 of that into the freezer, leave a couple out, and begin to use that fresh. A few ideas for using your bone broth are obviously soups and stocks, having that as the base. You can cook your grains in this bone broth. And you can also make one of my favorites, what I call the savory elixir, of which we got a video to show you exactly how to make that. That's the idea of taking a bone broth as the base in almost, I don't want to use the word smoothie, because that's not quite it, but we all have our nourishing kind of energy drinks that we love to consume. Very often, it could be in the realm of tea or coffee, or it's in the realm of that idea of the smoothie, and it generally tends to be a little bit sweeter. This is the idea of creating a delicious drink that's savory and perfect nourishment, perfect energy for you on the go, and you have that as the base, and it's super easy to make. All right, hope you enjoyed this. Add bone broth into your life, and enjoy.